know that follow us that my husband Derek is disabled. You can tell that because he's in a wheelchair. So it's obvious that he's disabled. Wheelchair gives it away. But for me, it's a different story.
Got my coffee cup to go, and I'm gonna hit the road tonight.
Because I, most of the time, look pretty normal, people misjudge and they don't understand or think that I'm there to help him all the time, that I don't have my own issues to deal with. So I'm making this video to kind of clear those things up. Okay, here is some background on why I'm disabled. So a lot of you don't know this. Maybe I've mentioned it on some live streams, but prior to becoming disabled in van life voyages, I was a registered nurse for 15 years. I got a bachelor's degree in nursing, and then I got a post-baccalaureate school nurse credential for the state of California. I already had a public health certificate, and so because I had the 4-year degree in nursing, I was able to get a post-baccalaureate school nurse credential because you had to do another couple years in school and work before you could get that. So I did that. Then I got extra training in forensics and concentrated on crimes against women and children. So you kind of get the drift of what that was about without me specifically spelling it out because YouTube doesn't like certain words that I would use to describe how I was a forensic nurse. But it was a response team for, crimes against women and children. So I worked with law enforcement, took all the evidence collection for that, pictures, all the swabs. So that's a whole nother video on that job, which was very interesting, but very stressful at the same time. I really loved doing that, but I loved my school nurse job too. So besides the forensics, I was a school nurse for 15 years in the whole county's Office of Education, in special education. So I worked with kids from orthopedic impairments, in wheelchairs, to autism, to emotional disturbances. I worked with pretty much every disability you can imagine. I worked with at one time or another in kids. I was also a court-appointed special advocate, also known as a CASA. So I had a couple of CASA kids throughout the years that I monitored, followed, and wrote reports for the court for. And then I owned my own business. I owned a soap company, all-natural soap and body product company in California, called Urban Seduction, and urban like herbs, and it was all natural. And I developed every single product. We had a small manufacturing office, pretty much ran out of our home, and we worked the farmers market and had an online store which we shipped all over the country. So I basically had all that going when I became disabled. Although I had medical conditions that were over the years starting to pretty much take effect, but the working so many hours, pretty much being a workaholic, I think kind of made it snowball because there was so much stress involved in my different juggling everything. Because I did work 7 days a week for years. I was able to save a lot of money and, have nice things, but it was too much. It shouldn't, you should enjoy life more, get out and live, which is why we've developed Van Life Voyages and why I'm so passionate about nature being the best medicine and being able to go out and enjoy life, is because I was lacking that, and I realize now how important that is. It's been a huge eye-opener for me. I mean, I mourned being medically retired. I'm about tearing up right now. I literally loved being a nurse, loved my life, loved the kids at school, loved doing forensics. I loved my company. I loved everything I was doing, and it pretty much got all taken away from me, in a year or so. when things just started snowballing and I just couldn't do it anymore. My body wore down and it triggered something in my brain, a movement disorder that is from the brain that's called cervical dystonia. Well, it's actually affected from my eyes all the way down to my mid back. So it says cervical, which you're thinking of just your neck, but it affects primarily my left side. But we're talking like bra strap, below the bra strap, all the way up to my eyes, and the back of my head's affected. But that disorder kind of came on over 2 years really dramatically, and along with some other things that I'm going to describe to you. But can you imagine, you're all, you're loving your life. I'm Derek and I got married a few years ago, so I was, happily married. We had a nice home. I had like my dream careers going on, like everything, and then it all came tumbling down. That really was really tough on me. I mourned, went kind of depressed and mourned my old life. But that being said, oh, you know what? Let me turn on my backlights. That'll be helpful. Sorry, I'll keep going, but I don't want to bore you guys either. Okay, there you can see those pretty lights. And let me turn on. This is my USB lights. You can see them up around the cab. So let me see if I can move the camera so you can see. Yeah, look, there's all my lights. Anyway, I hope I'm not boring you guys too much. Being a school nurse in special education, Derek always joked around and said, "Oh, that's why when we got together and I was in a wheelchair, it was so easy for you and you didn't have a problem with it." It was true. I didn't have any problem with the wheelchair. It was like second nature for me because I am a nurse, and being that I worked in special ed and there was a lot of wheelchairs, I just literally it didn't faze me. I didn't see the wheelchair. It didn't bother me. Like a lot of people wouldn't want to date somebody in a wheelchair or whatever. I was like, oh, it's just another different. It's just a difference. Like I have differences, but at the time I had medical conditions happening, some chronic conditions, but I was working. Derek handled a lot of the home stuff, kept everything running. Well, I mean, he did the office stuff with the business. He handled phone calls. He shipped stuff. I mean, he was a very integral, integral part of urban seduction and keeping that running smoothly. He dealt with employees, training issues, like everything like an HR person would do, payroll. I mean, he handled all of that. I just had to actually do the, product development, product training, check them off that they knew how to make every product, blah, blah, blah. Making sure everything was being shipped on time. The regular management stuff is what I did. And then my daughter and her friends worked for us in high school. She made the products. She worked the farmers market booth with me. And I had another employee that pretty much made the products as well. So it was a small business, but it was growing significantly. And I was doing school nursing, and I had the forensic nurse that I was doing on nights and weekends. Not every night and weekend, but a lot of nights and weekends I was on call for with law enforcement. Oh yeah, we also did the forensics for the prisons. So imagine that. Anytime they would call with they needed an exam for, then the nurses did the exams and took the evidence. So it was a busy job. I was busy, let's just put it that way. But I definitely mourned losing my career. So what happened was all these medical conditions started kind of snowballing and, overlapping on one another, and we couldn't figure out what was what or what was happening. I didn't know at the time that I had some genetic issues because my mom 5 years ago. My mom and two of her sisters all died in the same year, very suddenly. My mom and her sister died the same night of just in their sleep, just didn't wake up, in their early 60s. Their brother died suddenly. The other sister died suddenly, just drinking her coffee. I mean, it was a lot of, my mom and her siblings all pretty much died of sudden cardiac death or sudden heart attacks. But they all also had joint issues. They also had back issues. They also had a whole string of conditions that they would just go to the doctor for. And it's a small, rural clinic. And they would just be like, here, take some medicine for this, here, take some medicine for that, but never like investigate anything really to see what was going on. And we didn't know of the pattern of suddenly dying until everybody pretty much did it the same year. That was like incredible. I mean, who has family members, all sisters die in the same year, and a cousin? They had a cousin and three sisters die in the same year suddenly. So then, me being a nurse, I started researching and going, why is everybody just passing away so suddenly? What's going on? And at the same time, my health is deteriorating, and I have a lot of the same symptoms and issues that they were having, but weren't really diagnosed properly. And so there went down a rabbit hole, but at the same time, I'm working, I'm doing all this, and I'm having severe, like, head to toe body pain. My head started leaning towards my shoulder, and this shoulder came up to touch my head, and it couldn't straighten it. Like, no matter what, like, doctors couldn't even hardly straighten it. It was like fighting, like this, like I'm doing now. It would just keep jerking back. And I literally lived with my head on my shoulder for over a year when we were trying to figure out what was going on. And the doctor, I finally got diagnosed, and the neurologist was like, the only treatment we have we have several treatments, but the main treatment for this is Botox injections, which what I'm going to do is I'm going to paralyze your muscles that are overreacting so that they cannot contract like that. And so, or you're gonna every few months, if you don't have the Botox, you're gonna be sideways your entire life because it would not relax. And I know I did physical therapy, I did massage, I did stretching, I did everything. Okay, changed my diet. No gluten. I mean, you name it, I did it. The only thing I haven't done is, which I am considering, is acupuncture. And the reason why I haven't done acupuncture is I live far away from an acupuncturist, and it would be so many treatments, and I already go to the doctor constantly, and I already have, I mean, it's just ridiculous on all my specialists and how often I have to go. With the dystonia, yeah, it took me a year. I tried some other treatments. I tried all these other treatments because I didn't want some botulism toxin injected into my muscles, and because I don't like, I mean, I believe in doing most things naturally as you can. So I don't really like a bunch of injections you can't reverse, and being that you'd be paralyzed, or these muscles would be paralyzed for 3 months at a time, and you're literally, he's going to inject, and some of the side effects, which they tell you, is by paralyzing the muscles or injecting along the neck. I mean, there's arteries, there's veins, they inject too much, you get head droop, and then your head's like flopping around, breathing. If they inject your lung by accident, like there's so many things, nerves, veins, arteries, organs. I mean, imagine everything. And if they inject or slip or direct too much because they don't know how much to give you, it's all like a guessing game at the beginning. So I was very, very reluctant to get this Botox injections, even though, all the doctors were like, you need to do it. It's like the best treatment. I'm like, I am not thrilled at getting something injected It's going to paralyze muscles and can't be reversed for 3 months. It has to wear off. So I mean, that was terrifying to me. So what I did instead were some nerve blocks in the back of my head, the physical therapy, the diet. I mean, I did stretching. I mean, you name it, I did it before I tried the Botox. But being stuck like this for, I'll show you some pictures, for a year and being so uncomfortable and trying to work that way as it's getting more and more severe. And now the only reason why I'm semi straight is because of the Botox, and I'm still not all the way straight. I require even more at the next session, and then it's a vicious cycle. Every 3 months or less than 3 months, every 2.5 months, the Botox wears off. If I don't get there to get injections, I'm miserable. My head starts and shoulders starts contracting again really severely, and I'm back to square one if I do not keep those up. Every 3 months, I have to have the injections. And we're not talking about one or two. We're talking 18 spots. I mean, like, it's a lot that they're injecting. And in between those sessions, I still get nerve blocks with some steroids in the back of my head for the severe occipital neuralgia, which causes severe nerve pain in the back of my head. That's so severe, it's like migraine. Between the Botox and the nerve blocks, I'm trying to prevent these headaches that are so severe they're debilitating. And it's sent from the brain, same area that Parkinson's. It's basically a different movement disorder, but Parkinson's is there in that same kind of category. But in Parkinson's, you get more tremors, and with dystonia, you get muscles that are contracting involuntarily. And how I describe it is it feels like it's super hard rock, like your muscles are hard as a rock, but at the same time they're twisting. So like wringing out a towel. So if you can imagine a wet towel and you wring it out and you wring it out and it's twisting and it's pain, and that's what it's doing constantly. I mean, even when you're sleeping, you don't get much relief. It's pretty damn bad. I mean, as a nurse, I just couldn't imagine ever that I would get something or have to deal with something so painful. I mean, it literally, this and some other disorders literally destroyed my life, basically. And then on top of that, the first thing I was diagnosed with was fibromyalgia. And for me, it caused like the head to toe pain. Before the head and neck started contracting and these muscles up here were like contracting and twisting, I had fibromyalgia pain. So basically head to toe muscle pain. And they do all these tests and they poke around, and anyway. So I definitely have fibromyalgia. But what they also found out with my diagnosis of fibromyalgia and more testing at the neurologist is, let's take some skin biopsies of her nerves, basically at the skin level, and see what the nerves are doing because of the severe pain I was in all over my body. So they took some nerve or skin biopsies, and I'll show you a little bit. I'll try to show you some of that in here, what they do. Well, they take these skin biopsies, they put them under a microscope, and they're looking at the nerves. They dye it, and they can see the nerves. And the nerves, for me, were so deteriorated, and they take multiple spots so that way they can compare. And they know the normals for your age. And they look at your age, they look at what normal nerves look like, and then they compare it. And my nerves were so deteriorated but basically my nerves were like somebody in their 80s. Like it was now I was still in my 40s. So I had severe, what's called small fiber neuropathy. So the small fiber neuropathy is causing like the fibromyalgia pain. And so they kind of overlap. And after all of this and reading a bunch of articles and doing research, come to find out 50%, up to 50% of people with fibromyalgia actually have this small fiber neuropathy. And the only way to get diagnosed, well, there's several ways, but there's sweat tests that they can do. But one of the ways that they definitely know you have it is with the skin biopsy. And so then I got diagnosed with small fiber neuropathy, and this is in my 40s. fibromyalgia, and cervical dystonia. And then on top of that, for years, I've had these like fainting episodes, um, almost feeling like anxiety where your heart's palpitating, you feel just stressed, and you're like, what is happening? What's going on with my body? Everything was affected. My bladder started getting affected. My eyes were getting affected. Like, so many things, okay? And I'm like, oh, is this the fibromyalgia? What is this? Because they're kind of starting to overlap. And come to find out, I had a dysautonomia, which is familial. So it is runs in my family. It's genetic. We know this because both of my kids also have it, and my sister. Um, the type we have is most mine is mixed, but it's called POTS, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and it's a dysautonomia. So your heart and blood pressure systems are kind of messed up, and not reacting right, especially when you're standing or walking or doing some kind of physical activity in the upright position. Like, my blood pressure and heart rate stay steady if I'm laying down. They stay steady if I'm sitting. They are not steady when I'm walking or standing or doing anything strenuous, like I can't go hiking. Um, I've just gotten to where I can walk around towns without fainting. And of course, imagine being by yourself and you're trying to go walk around these towns, or trying to, go for a walk, and you can't go very far away from your van because you could pass out and there's nobody there to rescue you, and you're out by yourself. So it's a little bit dangerous what I do. And the reason, and you'll see a lot of with my dystonia. Sorry, I changed the subject, but I just saw it on camera, so that's why I'm explaining it to you. You can see my eyes fluttering and blinking a lot. That's part of the dystonia. It's called blepharospasms. It's eye spasms. And also sometimes my cheek is going like this. But both eyes do get the spasms and the excessive blinking. And then sometimes this jaw right here, there's like a joint issue. So TMJ of this jaw, because of this dystonia, it's affected. So it's kind of affected eyes, jaw, shoulder, and this is where it starts on both sides, and then mid back. I also do have hearing loss, so that's another. I have mild to moderate hearing loss, but I don't wear hearing aids yet. I'm not quite ready for that yet, but I do wear Bluetooth devices. So you'll pretty much see me with a Bluetooth device a lot of the times. I used to have what's called earphones, where you could amplify the sound if you wanted, but they're mostly Bluetooth for listening to stuff or whatever. But anyway, that's another story. But the POTS, or the dysautonomia, is like really not fun and cumbersome to have, because you have to keep your body, like, you have to keep from overheating. That's the main thing. You have to keep the blood pressure up and not draining out of your brain, because you kind of need to have blood flowing to your vital organs, especially your brain, so you're not being forgetful and having issues with that, passing out, which is why you pass out, because you're not getting the blood flow to the brain. It's kind of staying towards the feet and not pumping upright. And so my symptoms were faint. And how are you supposed to be a nurse if you're fainting all the time? But you can't take care of somebody else if you're fainting all the time, or having your head stuck to things and being in severe pain head to toe all day, every day. So it became to where I tried working and things were adding up and I wasn't able to. So my doctors put me on disability for like the year before I was medically retired. And then I got on special meds. I started doing the Botox treatments. I got a CPAP for my sleep apnea. That's a whole nother thing. I mean, I've done everything to get this in check as much as possible, and my body just doesn't cooperate. There's still really bad days, even on all my meds, that make me not be able to function. So, you'll see me on videos or being sporadic with the posting of the videos or what I can put up because I have to listen to my body and do what's best for my body first and foremost. I cannot be bedridden, um, which is what happens. I have to stick to my schedule of all my doctor's appointments for my treatments. So it kind of puts a damper on van life if you've got to stay around your doctors or can't be gone more than a month, which is the longest I can go because of my appointments and my medications and stuff like that. So that's why we have the base camp home or our home base where um, I can kind of lay down, regroup, whatever, recover if I need to. But I try to be gone as much as I can in the van because the nature part, being out in nature, seeing the scenery, getting the sun, getting the wind, it's so therapeutic for me. It brings my blood pressure down, everything stays in check better. I feel better, my muscles are more relaxed. Um, like right now I'm sitting up and I don't really have a back support, so that's becoming a problem. It's already severely painful. So what I do for that, and this is on the spur of the moment, is if you can see this big pillow back here, and I'll show you how I sit to do work when I'm doing my videos and stuff for YouTube, and I can't work more than a couple hours a day because it's just too painful with my arms and stuff, but I'll show you. So I scoot back here where this is against my back, and it still hurts here. So I have this pillow, and I get it in the exact spot, which feels good. So here, basically. And then I have my desk right here. But there'll be a whole nother video on this. So here I can eat, I can do my laptop, I can work laying in bed basically because I have to have a special setup, special everything so that I can be comfortable enough to have my arms up like this to edit basically. So sometimes it's got to be this high and I just have to sit here and relax back because this takes all the pressure off the muscles and it feels a lot better. So I mean obviously the arms driving and the arms are trigger all these muscles to reach and stuff. So that's where I have a lot of the problem is sitting upright. I can't sit in any chair hardly. Like I have to take constant breaks. They try to get me everything for work, that to make my job more tolerable, chairs and this and that, but nothing worked. I mean, how are you supposed to lay like that at work? And then how are you supposed to take care of somebody else as a nurse if you're passing out all the time? How are you supposed to work with severe headaches and severe pain from head to toe? I mean, one of those is disabling. Try to have all of them together, overlapping. So I'm going to do a video. I will do a video on some of those hidden disabilities and what they are more in depth than I am now. I'm just explaining that not every disability is visible, okay? When I have a neck brace on, which I wear, let me grab that. When I have this on, it's a symbol, just like the wheelchair, that there's something wrong with you physically. So then, people are like, oh, let me help you, this kind of stuff. More so than me just sitting like this, grocery shopping or out and about. They don't know that I have all these issues and that I'm what I call, or what they call, my work calls, medically retired. So that last year when all this was going on and these symptoms were overlapping and we couldn't figure out why my head was going sideways and my shoulder, all these muscles I was just severely impacted. I was trying to work for the longest time, and then I got accommodations, and I was kind of working part-time at home. I mean, they tried a lot of stuff. I tried a lot of stuff to be able to continue working. I went down in jobs, had to close my company. I wanted to stay, doing my school job. I stopped the forensic job. Then I couldn't even do the school job because I'm running school to school outside in the heat, running to emergencies, going to meetings, running around, driving and jumping out of the car and going here and going there and hauling equipment. And it's sad to say, but my body just couldn't take it. Yes, there's some physical stuff with being in the van, like loading up to go somewhere. What I do is I keep the van pretty much stocked and ready to go on a moment's notice. I just have to grab some clothes because I don't have to do all the lifting and packing. And I mean, I do have to put stuff in the refrigerator, but minimal. I try to keep it minimal so that it's not so stressed and strained on my body, although it still does happen. And then there's still days where I struggle significantly. But those days I try to sit outside in my special chair, which that's another thing I'll show you eventually. And it's perfect for where I sit and everything. I mean, it's good. So I try to sit outside, get the sun, kind of meditate. I mean, all that stuff is amazing. The outdoors really does help me. So if it's therapeutic and almost more helpful than everything else, then that's what I know I need to do for my own body. I do not do well cooped up inside a house all day. It's just, I need the outdoors. I love the nomadic lifestyle of going place to place. I love listening to your body and doing what you need to at a moment's notice. I love and thrive on that kind of lifestyle. So that's why I'm doing van life most of the time, or at least half the time, as much as I can. It's just extremely healing for me. What I did was I wanted to give it one more try with the schools and being a school nurse because I just love those kids I was working with, and I loved that job. For 15 years I did it. I had been pretty much disabled and on disability that whole last year, and this was before the pandemic. I was officially retired in the school year of 2019, so like right before the pandemic, which that stress would have totally wiped me out. There'd been no way. So before the pandemic hit, I tried one last summer school. I did summer school for the schools because it's shorter. The days are shorter. The kids aren't in school as long. There's less meetings. It's less stressful. So I said, let me go back in summer school, begged my doctors. They signed me off. I went, and it was a nightmare. It was so hot getting in and out of the car. I was having so many dizzy episodes. Blood wasn't getting to my head. Every time I got out of the car, I was dizzy, and I don't sweat right because of the small fiber neuropathy. So my body would overheat easy. I couldn't keep enough water in it. I was going to the ER to get fluids. I mean, it was a nightmare. So I got medically retired, needless to say, after that last trial run. And they're like, even before that, I was coming to grips in my own mind that I was not safe. And first and foremost is patient safety. And I was realizing that I wasn't safe to be a nurse anymore and have people under my care. They could obviously, if you make one mistake, it could be life threatening. And all these little kids were on, special medications and had special treatment plans themselves and had seizures and had asthma and had all kinds of stuff that I had to manage and oversee and run to emergencies and stuff, that I realized, and I was coming to grips with being unsafe to be their nurse or any other nurse for anybody at that point. So that was the most heartbreaking thing, was coming to grips with being not safe to be their nurse anymore. I mean, that was just heartbreaking for me. My identity was being a nurse for so many years, and caregiving, and being that I had to be taken care of, and the roles were reversed, and I'm no longer the caregiver. People were having to take care of me, became such a hard thing for me to do. Such a hard thing. I mean, I struggled so hard with kind of giving in and medically retiring. So they did. They medically retired me from the county, and so I have a pension from years of paying in and all that. So that's why you see me doing van life. That's my backstory. And not all disabilities are visual. Okay, you don't notice every single person that has you don't know if they have a disability or not. I try so hard not. I don't park in handicapped spots, even though I'm entitled to. I don't park in them because I know how hard it is for Derek to find a spot with being in the wheelchair, especially the van spots. I never park in the van spots, even though I have a huge van. I park somewhere else so I can leave those spots for people in wheelchairs. There are spots that aren't wheelchair designated that, vans with lifts, you can't park there. So sometimes those ones, if I'm feeling really bad and I can't walk as far in the heat, then I will use those. But I try really hard if there's spaces open that aren't too far away to park in regular spots. Um, I do have the National Parks Pass card for people with disabilities. It's called the Access Pass. So me and Derek both have one of those. It's just sometimes life is a little really hard on you, and things are crumbling around you, and people are like judging you and thinking, "Oh, she can work. Why can't she work? She should be working. Why is she on disability? She looks perfectly fine." Or maybe she's his caregiver when it's Derek. Like, they expect me to do every single thing for Derek. I can't lift anybody. I have such severe back and neck issues and vertebrae issues from the twisting of the dystonia that I'm not even safe lifting somebody. Like, there are just so many things. Or if I'm not helping him load his wheelchair or helping him, like other people, they look at you like, oh, you're just standing there. Like, it's just so much judgmental people out there. Just give people a break. And I mean, if you don't understand, maybe ask. But to be looked down upon because your disability isn't visible and being judged is not always fun either. So anyway, I hope you guys got something from this video. If you did, please watch this other video that I'm going to put over here because it's a backstory of when our channel was small, of Derek and I both explaining our different medical conditions. And so a lot of people haven't seen it because it was early on in our channel. So if you'd please watch that, I'd really appreciate it. It will really help you fill in. And if you like this or got anything out of it, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like it. Do all the YouTube thingies. So, because that really helps our analytics, really helps YouTube push it out. And remember, we love you guys, and nature is the best medicine. So get out and enjoy life. See you next video. Bye.